Hi, this is Parvin Dabas, and welcome back to the MMA India Show. We have for you the post-fight analysis of the top two fights in UFC Fight Night Stockholm, and then we have a preview of the top three fights at UFC 212. This week's episode is brought to you by the Mirror Game, a Khel Shuru movie coming to your theaters June 2nd, and here is the trailer, and then we will come back to the show.
Hello everyone. Ready for another exciting psychiatry class? मुझे मेंटोर बनाना इतना आसान नहीं है। इसे पहचानो प्रोफेसर। मुझे हराना चाहोगे? सर आज के लिए हमने काफी खेल खेल लिया है। We're gonna make you famous.
फैमिली सब ठीक है?
मुझे इसका जवाब देने की जरूरत नहीं। मैं थोड़ी देर के लिए बाहर जा रही हूँ। खाने पर मेरा इंतजार मत करना।
तानिया का सच में अफेयर चल रहा है।
Is that you? This is possibly an active crime scene. We don't really have an option.
क्या?
आप ये कहानी बना रहे हैं।
मुझे नहीं मालूम वो कहाँ पे। तुम्हें रॉनी नाम का स्टूडेंट याद है?
How do you expect me to believe that?
मुझे उसे ढूंढना होगा। मैं उनमें से नहीं हूँ जिनकी ज़बान पलट जाती है।
You're talking like a serial killer now.
आप लोगों को लगता है कि मैं पागल हूँ।
This is a big mess.
You are wasting your time here when the real culprit is out there.
Can you please answer the questions, doctor?
मैं कुछ भी करने को तैयार हूँ।
कुछ भी?
क्या गारंटी है कि आप अपने वादे से पीछे नहीं हटेंगे?
चले जाओ यहाँ से। चले जाओ। What's my name?
You're joking, right?
And check.
Hey, and we're back. This is Parvin Dabas with Akhilesh Ganavarrapu. We're first going to talk UFC Fight Night Stockholm, the top two fights, before moving on to UFC 212. So, starting off directly with, I think it was the co-main event, the Vulcan, or Vulcan, it sounds like Vulcan from Star Trek, Vulcan Ozdemir versus Misha Cirkunov.
Yeah.
Now, in this fight, of course, the talk was centered around, because it was such a short fight, Misha immediately came out and tried to rush Ozdemir. Now, he got that right clip in. It was a short, like, it was a short shot. There wasn't, it was almost like a pat, but he still went down. So, that kind of shows how much power this guy has. If without really swinging also, he downed a guy like Cirkunov.
Right. So, going into the fight itself, a lot of people thought Cirkunov would easily pick up the victory because, he's looked at as the guy that is going to probably get in the top 5, top 4 after you have the likes of Glover. A lot of people expected Cirkunov to be, aggressive, to come forward the way he did, and they expected Cirkunov to pick up the victory. But yeah, as you said, it was a pretty, a short fight because the interesting thing was Ozdemir did not back out, fighting against a more experienced, Cirkunov should have been ranked higher. He was let go of the UFC. He said, look, either I get a better pay or I leave. And then Dana White said, who cares? He can go. Then, Dana White said he's never going to come back to the UFC. But then they got him back. And I think he was ranked at number 5 when he left, but now he's at number 7. While Ozdemir, who did not, fight any big fighters, who did not face any big names, was in the top 5. So, it was a chance for Ozdemir to prove in front of his own hometown crowd that, he has what it takes to be in the top 5, to challenge for the title after 1 or 2 fights, So it was a big victory. It was a big occasion for Ozdemir, but at the same time, it was a big fight for Cirkunov because he was coming back to the UFC after having a fallout with the promoter. So talking about the fight itself, Ozdemir, he Serkinov came forward, he was the aggressor, but at the same time, Ozdemir did not back down. He put in his combinations, he made sure to push Serkinov against the cage, and as you said, he just connected with a very short hook that landed exactly the temple of Serkinov when he went down.
Well, yeah, almost slightly towards the back of the head, a little to the back of the temple, or around that area. Let's just say that.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you never know what kind of shot someone needs to go down. We have seen people taking harder shots, and staying up, while we've also seen people taking one shot and crumbling to the ground. So, yeah, I mean, Ozdemir, this is probably his biggest victory to. But again, Prue has always been a very iffy kind of a fighter. But Serkinov, one of the legit top 5 guys that many people expected to be in the top 5 for a long time to come. So it was a very impressive victory for Ozdemir.
Yeah, now it's already been announced yesterday night that Ozdemir is now going to face Jimmy Manuwa at UFC 214.
Right.
And I think that's a great matchup considering, how strongly both of these guys are coming off of their last fights. And it's especially a great fight for Ozdemir considering that Jimmy Manuwa was, for a while there, being considered for a title shot against Daniel Cormier.
Right, so as I said, the light heavyweight division is in such a turmoil because if you look at the top, you have the Gustafsons and you have the John Jones. But outside of the top 3 guys, who do you have? You have Misha Serkinov, you have Ozdemir, you have Jimmy Manuwa. So it's a very interesting period. If you look at the level of competition itself, the top 3 guys are head and shoulders above the rest of the division. But at the same time, you have, for example, the guys like Jimmy Manuwa, who now have the opportunity, the legit opportunity to get one more victory and then, straight away fight for the title, to face the winner of DC and John Jones, depending upon who wins. So it's a very interesting transitional phase that the division is going through. But at the same time, this point, the light heavyweight division was one of the most stacked divisions in the UFC. But now you look at the division, it's just those top 3 guys that are legit title contenders. But Ozdemir now has the opportunity to face Manuwa, who was supposed to fight DC. But with a victory again, if Ozdemir manages to drop Manuwa and get the victory, then with just 2 big wins, not even big, one would be the big win, the other would be, and if he fight again in Misha Serkinov, he would be looking at ideally fighting for a shot at the title in a #1 contenders fight.
Yeah, definitely. Well, moving on to Gustafsson versus Glover Teixeira. Of course, it was Gustafsson's hometown, and he didn't disappoint. I think we can give him a new nickname now and call him Uppercut Gustafsson.
Yeah, I think
because he fired in that uppercut at will. If you see, he had Teixeira in trouble in the first round with that, even though Teixeira had just taken him down, and in like a big fashion. And but the first round, third round, and of course he finished him in the fifth round.
Right.
But even in the third round, it seemed like he almost finished Teixeira. And Teixeira, of course, showed a lot of heart in continuing to come back, from those uppercuts when you thought he was going to be finished, especially in the third round.
Right, so I think for Gustafsson, it was the reminder of 2 fights that propelled him to do how he did. The one fight was against Anthony Johnson, where he got knocked out in his hometown. Then, his last fight against Jan Blachowicz. But at the same time, Glover Teixeira, I think, was also fighting his own demons, because the last fight we saw, against same Anthony Johnson, and he got knocked out with an uppercut. So if you look at...
that wasn't his last fight. I think Teixeira's last fight was against Cannonier, wasn't it?
Right, sorry, my bad. So he faced Jared Cannonier after that, sorry.
After that. So he's coming off a win of Cannonier, but he lost against Anthony Johnson before that. Yeah.
Even the Cannonier fight, it went to, the decisions. It was not that kind of an impressive showing that you might expect from one of the top 5 guys. But at the same time, as I said, I think this fight was both the fighters battling the previous demons, especially, Anthony Johnson, because we saw in Stockholm itself, in Sweden, when Gustafsson faced Anthony. He was aggressive, he was coming forward, but Anthony clipped him and, finished the fight. The same thing with Teixeira. Teixeira moved forward, tried closing the distance, did not give Anthony Johnson enough space or room to land a straight jab, anything that would settle at the end of his jabs. But he got knocked out with an uppercut. He tried closing the distance. He went too close, and Anthony connected with an uppercut. So Gustafsson kind of learned from those two fights where he was constantly looking for that uppercut because he knew Teixeira's game plan. He would again, similar to Anthony, Gustafsson had the reach advantage. So he could always, stay on the outside and just keep working with combinations. So he knew that Teixeira had to close the distance, A, to either get in the pocket and box with him, or B, even going for a takedown. He would have to change levels. He would have to close the distance. So Gustafsson learned from his previous two fights. He was trying to, as Johnson did, kind of exploit that weakness that Teixeira has, where he leaves himself open when he tries to close the distance. And at the same time, he made sure that he was not repeating the mistakes that he did with Anthony Johnson, where he was creating separation. So every time Teixeira tried to come forward, you saw Gustafsson, running away, creating separation, resetting himself. So I thought that was an excellent game plan on Gustafsson's part as well, because he learned from those two fights against Anthony. What Anthony did to Glover Teixeira and what Anthony did to Gustafsson, he learned from both of those and made sure to execute a game plan that kind of benefited him more than Teixeira.
Yeah. Now, of course, after that, I was really sweet, of course, to see him proposing to his girlfriend in the ring, and I think it made for a really special moment for the UFC as well, the fact that he did it in the octagon. Of course, they have a child together. It was really sweet to see him propose to her and for her to accept. After that, of course, he did go on to make some comments about Daniel Cormier being a real champion.
Yeah.
And, a good guy. And John Jones not really being a champion. And John Jones just, I think, some hours ago has fired back, about him being a dork. And, of course, and a couple of other things. And saying, but congrats, you are marrying a beautiful woman. But, you should hope that Daniel wins and blah, 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 all of that. And you should start praying that Daniel wins. Of course, in John Jones' style, I think we are gradually again seeing the disappearance of the humble John Jones, the so-called, it was good while it lasted. The whole tears and all of that. I'm not saying they weren't real, but I think this is the real John Jones. And so be it. If this is how he is, this is how he is. He likes to give it back. He doesn't like to hear anything from any of the fighters. The minute he does, he's on Twitter giving it back. That's who he is. He's unapologetic. No shame in, being who you are. Not that he is shamed, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because in between there was that phase of, when that whole USADA thing was going on, of being the humble guy. But now that, one is reaching the end of it, we've kind of getting the old John Jones back.
Right, and that's John Jones' persona, ever since he won the title when he was, 21, 22, it was John Jones who was the bad guy, who was the, you can almost call him the lost soul, So he has all the potential in the world. By this time, he could have easily been the greatest of all time, but then he have and interfering with his professional life. So John Jones has always been that bad guy, and that is who John Jones is. So even if he portrays himself to be humble, yes, that was only to the fans. John Jones always said, I am who I am. To the fans, I'm apologetic, but to the fighters, hey, you can, do what.
Yeah, kiss my ass.
Yeah, so John Jones has always been that bad guy. So I think even now, when we talk about Daniel Cormier and John Jones, we do not want a humble John Jones. We want the John Jones, who pushed Daniel Cormier during the promotional tour and got him with a right and dropped him. We want that bad guy to
But having said that, Gustafsson has fought John Jones, and I think John Jones shouldn't forget that a lot of people thought Gustafsson won that fight, and rightly so.
Yeah, but at the same time, he did not get his hand raised.
He didn't. But a lot of people, including myself, thought Gustafsson was going to get his hand raised in that fight. The only thing he didn't do is really knock him out. Otherwise, I think he did everything else.
But still, yeah, at that point you had John Jones going through a personal crisis. So I mean, I'm not making any, apologies on John Jones' behalf, but at the same time, you have John Jones that's going to return, and the light heavyweight division needs John Jones more than anyone else at this point. Yeah, Gustafsson, has valid reasons to hold grudges against John Jones, because he did say John Jones does not represent the light heavyweight division. He's not fit to be the champion in the light heavyweight division, while Daniel Cormier is. So it's an iffy part for Gustafsson as well, because both DC and John have beaten Gustafsson. So it's going to be a tricky situation. No matter who wins, I think Gustafsson will get the next shot at the title. I think so, because this fight at least was pretty dominant for Gustafsson. Jan Blachowicz, again, Gustafsson was pretty dominant in that fight as well. So looking at things, I'm fairly confident the winner of DC and John would eventually face Gustafsson for the title next.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is a very strong surety. Now we're going to take a small little break, and we are going to come back with UFC 212 preview. And we're back talking UFC 212, which is coming up this Sunday morning in India. Let's start with Vitor Belfort versus Nate Marquardt. Mark, how do you pronounce his last name?
Marquardt.
Marquardt. I don't mean to make fun of him. He's a good guy. But Marquardt, I just have a problem pronouncing his name. But I think this is mostly, of course, this fight is going to be known for Vitor Belfort's goodbye.
Right.
But I don't think Nate is as easy a fight as he probably thinks he is.
No, but it's a good matchup for Vitor Belfort. I mean, in the past few fights, we've seen Belfort being matched up against top prospects, champions. So I think this is a fairly okay fight for someone like Belfort to just bow out. It's not an easy fight. It's not a difficult fight as well. Both have been veterans. One has fought for 20 years. I think Nate has fought for 18 years in his pro MMA career. Both have kind of suspect chins. So at this point, both are stylistically, well matched. So I think this is an okay fight for someone like Belfort, just to, show what he truly can do and bow out.
Now, I think we've spoken about this before, but Vitor Belfort, of course, is not the same as the testosterone-laden Vitor Belfort. Now, do you think that's been a blotch on his legacy? Because, he as we've seen, since he's been taken off, we've seen a whole different Vitor Belfort. And, he's not really been the same Belfort as the one who was on testosterone therapy.
I don't think it's going to be a blot on his career, to be honest, because a lot of fighters have been on TRTs. We have Silva getting busted for PEDs or steroids. We have a lot of fighters before USADA came in. We knew for a fact that 90 or 95% of the fighters were on TRTs or steroids. So Vitor Belfort's case is exceptional because he kind of went to USADA and said, look, this is what it is. Just like Chelson, and he said, I need testosterone because of my age. My body cannot produce testosterone normally. So that was the only reason, similar to Silva, that we came to know that, okay, Vitor Belfort, is on TRT.
Yeah, except in Belfort's case, it was okayed by the UFC.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. If other people have been tested the same way, we could have seen a whole different ball game at this point. If we saw high-profile fighters getting cranked down. A lot of fighters have, since the USADA era, a lot of fighters have not done well. I mean, I'm not going to imply anything, but there have been champions that are on a losing streak since the USADA era kicked in. So I don't think it's going to be a blot on Vitor Belfort, but at the same time, as a fan, as someone that has seen Vitor Belfort fighting for the past 16 years, you would want Vitor to go back on TRTs and kind of perform the same way that he used to, just because of the high knockouts that he used to have, and just because he used to be a completely different beast. But again, at the same time, it's an even matchup because Nate has been fighting for 18 years, Vitor has been fighting for 20 years. Both have suspect chins, both are at the fag end of their careers.
It's going to be an interesting fight. Both are very explosive. Both always come straight off the blocks. Although Vitor Belfort, as we've seen against Kelvin Gastelum, was kind of not charge in as he normally used to do. Nate Marquardt, again, he's a very experienced kickboxer, has really good offensive grappling. Vitor Belfort is no slouch on the ground, as we have seen previously. So it's an evenly matched up fight. But I think for once we can see Vitor Belfort knocking someone out in the first or second round.
Yeah. Well, that remains to be seen. But so let's see. Now coming to the co-main event, Claudia Gadelha versus Karolina Kowalkiewicz.
Karolina Kowalkiewicz.
Kowalkiewicz. I need to take a fucking course in everybody's name. Now this is going to be the bomb. Apart from the main event, this is like both of them, of course. Claudia had the more, I would say, she challenged Joanna a little more, but both of them had really good matchups with Joanna. But of course, Joanna beat them both. They are both now on the track back to being number one contenders.
Right.
How do you see this fight going?
So I think the one thing that would work in Claudia's favor is that this is a 3-round fight and not a 5-round fight. The previous fight against Joanna, we've talked about this before. The first 3 rounds were all Claudia Gadelha because she puts so much pressure on her opponents, takes them against the fence, is one of the best wrestlers, one of the strongest wrestlers in the division, has excellent grappling as well. But her main strength is her pressure, her pressure fighting and the amount of volume she throws in the first, second, and third rounds. We've seen against Joanna while Claudia gassed out. So this being a 3-round fight would favor Claudia Gadelha. At the same time, we've seen with Karolina in the past, someone like Rose Namajunas, who's known as one of the best grapplers in the division, Karolina nullified her grappling and nullified her clinch game as well. So she has the tools to kind of keep Claudia away, maintain separation, maintain distance, and not let Claudia overwhelm her with a pressure in the clinches or in the grappling department. So it's an interesting fight. I do see Claudia, as I said, just because it's a 3-round fight, I see Claudia overwhelming Karolina with the pressure, with the volume, with excellent wrestling and grappling. Either, if you keep the fight standing, Claudia will come with barrage of combinations. If it goes to the clinch, Claudia obviously is the stronger, fighter in the clinches. And when it goes to the ground, Claudia has excellent wrestling and grappling. But at the same time, as I said, Karolina can maintain the distance, can create separation, can use her unorthodox, striking game to kind of maintain the range, work from the outside. I just see Claudia, inching, I think beating Karolina on the scorecards. I do see Claudia winning this. I probably think this will be a decision victory. I do not see Claudia stopping Karolina just because of how impressive Karolina has looked and how good her Muay Thai game is. But as I said, Claudia, since it's a 3-round fight, I'm going with a decision victory for Claudia Gadelha.
Great. Now, coming to the main event, Jose Aldo versus Max Holloway. Now, of course, Aldo has been, I don't know the right word, that 13-second knockout haunts him. Everybody knows that, but he is still Jose Aldo. Apart from that one fight, he has beaten everybody very, very convincingly. Now, if you come to Max Holloway, he's on a, 9-fight or 8-fight win streak?
10-fight win streak.
10-fight win streak.
Yeah.
One of the most impressive which was Cub Swanson, of course.
Yeah.
Because Cub Swanson is, again, at the top of his game. He last beat Anthony Pettis, even though I wouldn't really, because Anthony Pettis was coming down, to the division. So, again, the weight cut and blah, blah, blah. But, all his other fights, Ricardo Lamas, Jeremy Stephens, Charles Oliveira, Cub Swanson, it shows a guy who hasn't lost since he lost to Conor McGregor, and both are, the last and one of the few fights they've ever lost is
Max
to Conor
Holloway
McGregor.
about that as well. So it's a very
Yes.
interesting clash of styles. Personally, I've been waiting to see this matchup for years. If you talk about Max Holloway, the scary aspect is he's just 25 years old. You take a look at his record, you take a look at his number of fights that he has fought, and you'd think he'd be in his mid-30s. But the scary aspect is he's 25, and he has improved so much since his fight with Conor McGregor. So it's going to be a very, very interesting clash of styles.
I think it would be really interesting to actually see Max against Conor McGregor now. Because like you rightly said, he's become such a better fighter because he was...
About 3.
The Conor McGregor fight was how many years ago? About 3? 4? Yes, 3 or 4 years ago. So he was like 23, So, or sorry, he was, 22. He was about 22, 21. So, he has matured so much since then and become a wholly different fighter. That would be a really interesting game. Whereas, of course, one wants to see Jose Aldo again fight Conor McGregor. But of course, Conor McGregor is nowhere to be seen in the featherweight division.
If you talk about the greatest of all time, I'm pretty sure Jose Aldo will be, his name will be at the very top. You talk about Fedor Emelianenko, you talk about John Jones. I think Jose Aldo has made a case for 13 years for his name to be at the very top.
Yeah, and I think that fight that he lost against Conor McGregor,
right? And it was interesting because Conor McGregor,
mentally,
the mental warfare,
rather than physically already.
After the victory, he said, "Look, I knew what I had to do because I saw Jose Aldo's right hand. He was clinching his fists. It was twitching. So I knew what he was going to do. I knew how he was going to throw a combination. I knew what I have to do to win the fight. So." I even asked Max Holloway about that. I asked, and the thing is, now Jose Aldo, he has never fought someone that just in his career. But since Conor with what he did with Jose Aldo, and going all that shtick, and Jose Aldo came out and said, "Oh, I'm not running away. You're the one running away," and he got emotional as well. But I don't think it'll be that big of a factor as it was with Conor McGregor because of Conor McGregor's antics. He went to Brazil, he looked at the Brazilian fans, and he looked at Jose Aldo and he said, "I'm going to kill you in Brazil." So, that was a completely different kind of a mindset that Jose Aldo was going in because he was undefeated for 12, 13 years. He was the best pound-for-pound fighter on the planet, and he is guys and so that different kind of mental warfare that was going on. But looking at the matchup stylistically itself, you have Max Holloway who's a volume puncher. He throws a lot of volume, and the thing is, he throws a lot, but his defensive guard is very, very good. If I remember the stats correctly, he just takes 67% of the other opponent's offense, while at the same time Jose Aldo's defensive guard is impeccable as well. But he doesn't throw as much volume as Max Holloway does. And at the same time, you kind of look at the power that both the fighters possess, and Jose Aldo does possess scary striking power, and so does Max Holloway. So in striking department, it's kind of even Stevens, but at the same time, you could see Max Holloway throwing more volume, connecting with more punches. And one aspect that no one takes away from Jose Aldo is his leg kicks. So the manner in which he cuts angles, the manner in which he makes way and drills opponents with combinations, including the leg kick. It's just not high, it's high, low, high. The various aspects that he does with his striking, and the fact that Noah Onao, the team that he trains with, is one of the best gyms on the planet. So it's a very interesting clash of styles. Yes.
And we saw that in his last fight against
McGregor,
Frankie
you kind of
Edgar
thought Jose Aldo might be on a downward spiral. But he came back against Frankie, who's arguably the second or third best fighter in the division, and he simply outclassed him. So Jose Aldo displayed the kind of performance that he's known to display, but that was against Frankie Edgar, one of the best fighters on the planet as well in the division. So, again, you talk about the ground game. Jose Aldo has exceptional jiu-jitsu game, excellent defensive game when he's on the back. But at the same time, Max Holloway is no slouch as well. Very good offensive grappling. His defensive grappling might not be that good, but again, he's known for cinching his guillotines. So it's very evenly contested when you look at things and you put things in perspective. It's not just striking ground game, it's the way they mix things, the way Jose Aldo, for example, mixes things. If he's unable to penetrate Max Holloway's guard, if he's not able to kind of create those angles and throw the amount of volume that he normally does, what he will do is he'll look for a takedown, because he's known for his double legs, he's known for his sweeps, while at the same time Max Holloway is also known for his sweeps. So it's do I see Max Holloway kind of edging Jose Aldo out? I don't know, to be very honest, because I think people are underestimating Jose Aldo at this point. I mean, everybody knows how good he is, but since that one loss against Conor McGregor in 13 seconds, I think it's a ghost that Jose Aldo needs to shake off.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah,
but
so
how is he going to shake it off?
If you're Jose
The only
Aldo,
way he
you
can
want to
shake
go
it off
and
is
put in
by
a dominant
fighting Conor
performance.
McGregor and beating him.
Once the fight ends, call Conor McGregor out, because if anyone can in the division, he can.
Yeah. So let's see first of all, let's see what happens in the fight. And then let's see
there's
what
no doubt
happens in
about
the ring.
it.
Because
No doubt
either
about
of these guys
But at the
winning
same time,
are going to call out
we asked
Conor
Max
McGregor.
Holloway about it. I asked, look, if you win, are you going to call Conor McGregor out? And he said, look, why would I call McGregor out? He's the one calling, right? He's the one calling the shots. I don't. But I want to be at that place where I can call my... Who is he going to call out? Who's the next fighter that he would fight? Realistically, logically, it has to be Conor McGregor. He would want to avenge his loss. So it's going to be a very interesting fight. It's going to be a very interesting post-fight interview as well, whoever wins.
Yeah, well, we look forward to that. So that's it for today. And we look forward to UFC 212. And the contest is open for you guys to win your USI products. So send in your guesses for the top 5 fights on the main card to MMAindia.com on the contest page in the comment section, and you stand a chance to win USI products. All the best.
I'm Manoj from Mysore, Karnataka. Yeah, so talking about the UFC 212 predictions, I'll be honest, I don't know much about the first 2 fights. Like, I haven't heard much about them fighters, so I think I'll just skip to Vitor Belfort versus Nate Marquardt. Yeah, talking about Vitor Belfort, he's on losing streak. Like, his last 3 to 4 fights haven't ended well, so he definitely wants to win this fight, like, as this is his last match with the UFC. So yeah, both Nate Marquardt and Vitor Belfort are well-rounded, and they both are veterans of the sport. They have been here for a very long time. Both of them have got a lot of mileage on their bodies. I think this is a case where whose body lasts longer. So Nate Marquardt is just slow. He's just so slick in his ground game. But I just feel like Vitor Belfort power is just too much for Nate Marquardt to deal with. So I just predict that Vitor Belfort is going to come out as a winner. Yeah, so the co-main event between Claudia Gadelha and Karolina Kowalkiewicz. This fight is so stylistically compelling, intriguing. I just feel like this one is hard to predict because Claudia Gadelha is so much strong on the ground. She's got her jiu-jitsu skills, it's top notch. And if you look at Karolina Kowalkiewicz, she's got this awesome striking skills, like she showed them against Joanna Jacek in her last fight. Claudia, she is so much strong, but she taps her gas tank, you know what I mean? Like she gets exhausted as the round progresses. Of course, she's gonna try to ragdoll Karolina Kowalkiewicz to the ground and she'll try to control her and she might look for the late submission. But I just feel like Karolina Kowalkiewicz is not afraid to grapple with Claudia. And Karolina, she starts the fight slowly. I mean, she'll just analyze the opponent for the first 2 rounds and then she picks up from there. So I think the cardio is definitely gonna play a major role. And I just predict that Karolina Kowalkiewicz might she might just edge this fight. She's going to have a close win, I guess. Yeah, so talking about the main event, Jose Aldo versus Max Holloway. This is such an interesting matchup. Both of them have got superior skills on their feet. Fights like these can have either of the 2 results. The fight can either go to the distance, like both of the fighters are going to push to their limits. It's going to be a dog fight, or else the fight's going to end quickly, like it happened in Aldo versus McGregor. But I just don't think either of them have got such power to end the fight early. But much respect to them. They both have shown their heart. They're gonna go to the distance. Talking about Aldo, he's so much skilled in his leg kicks, his knees. He's gonna be so much strong. So talking about Holloway, he's a technical surgeon. He likes to mix up those leg kicks, body shots, head shots, and he might try to look for the finish down the stretch. Holloway's whole, I think it's gonna be the ground game. But Jose Aldo, not just he can do the takedowns, but also he can dominate from the top position. So this is a fight where my heart says Max Holloway, but my head says Jose Aldo. But this is a crazy sport. This is a fight sport. Anything can happen. So I just predict Max Holloway takes this fight. So yeah, that's it from here. Thank you.